If you just say the word Atlantis to Zahi Hawass, he goes berserk. He absolutely goes nuts.
In the heart of the Sahara, tales of a verdant past, where the Nubian civilization flourished along the Nile's banks, come to life. Master builders and rulers, the Nubians etched their legacy into history, leaving behind pyramids as testaments to a culture rich in farming, trade, art, and governance. Could the sands be concealing untold chapters of human history? Come with us into the heart of ancient civilizations, exploring secrets preserved beneath the desert, pyramids, power, and the forgotten past. When we dig deeper into the Sahara Desert, often seen as just a huge, barren land, we discover a world brimming with untold stories and secrets. Far from being merely a place of sand and void, this region holds a wealth of historical treasures that time and the desert itself have been buried. Among the most fascinating tales from this treasure chest is that of the Nubian civilization, flourishing in the areas now known as Sudan and southern Egypt. The Nubians offer us a narrative quite apart from the Eurocentric histories we're used to hearing. Living from about 2000 BCE to 350 CE, the Nubians experienced more than 2,000 years of history, crafting a society that stood out in numerous respects. They were not only builders and leaders, but also innovative thinkers who left a lasting impact on a challenging and harsh environment. Contrary to some opinions, the Sahara hasn't always been a desert. Its climate has shifted over millennia, with areas that are now dry once lush and alive. The inhabitants of these regions adapted to these changes in extraordinary ways. Particularly adept at utilizing their surroundings, the Nubians constructed magnificent buildings that remain as witnesses to their craftsmanship and creativity. They mastered the Nile, developing irrigation techniques that turned the desert into farmland. Their governance was forward-thinking for its era. Kings and queens governed wisely, navigating alliances and conflicts with neighbors like the ancient Egyptians. Notably, Nubians even reigned over Egypt for a time during the 25th dynasty. Nubian culture was rich and varied, marked by its own language, script, and exquisite art. Their love for beauty is evident in the jewelry, pottery, and statues unearthed by archaeologists. They cherished knowledge and tradition, maintaining a vibrant oral history. The Nubian story challenges conventional views of history, which often neglect Africa's contributions outside of Egypt. Nubia's legacy reveals a world of innovation and power in Africa that's demanding recognition. As ongoing research sheds light on Nubia and similar civilizations, we gain a broader understanding of human history's diversity. These findings encourage us to explore beyond familiar narratives, celebrating the wide range of human achievements through time and geography. Envision a society enduring for thousands of years, through eras like the Kerma Kingdom, the Napatan period, and the Meroitic era. This society, Nubia, utilized its prime Nile location for trade, connecting Africa to the Mediterranean. Nubia, rich in resources like gold, ivory, and ebony, became a legendary center of wealth and trade. Nubia's relations with Egypt fluctuated between cooperation and conflict. When Egypt was strong, Nubia often played a secondary role, but Nubia rose in power when Egypt weakened, especially during Egypt's second intermediate period. The Napatan Kingdom's peak under King Pia exemplified Nubia's prominence, uniting Egypt and Nubia under a single rule. Post-Egypt, Nubia's center moved south to Meroe, fostering ties with Greeks and Romans and maintaining its influence despite conflicts. This strategic relocation helped Meroe flourish, benefiting from its location between the Nile's 5th and 6th cataracts. The Kerma and Kush kingdoms showcased Nubia's early civilization's prosperity, rooted in fertile agriculture and abundant resources. Despite Egyptian influences, Nubians forged a unique identity, evidenced by their Meroitic script and distinct cultural practices. The story of Nubia and ancient Egypt is a fascinating one, filled with moments of trade, cultural exchanges, and sometimes intense battles. It's quite a surprise to learn that leaders from Nubia once ruled over Egypt, especially during a time called the 25th dynasty. This part of history really shows how powerful Nubia was. Despite its grand history, Nubia doesn't get as much attention as Egypt does. But if you look closely, you'll find amazing things like the Dafufa in Kerma. These huge mud brick buildings are proof of how advanced Nubia was in building. In a place called Napata, they reached high points in religion and culture, mixing their ways with those of Egypt. In places like El Kuru, Nuri, and Meroe, you see pyramids that show how Nubia and Egypt influenced each other. But Nubia's pyramids are unique. They have steeper sides and are smaller than Egypt's. They were made for kings and queens and show a mix of different cultural influences in their designs. El Kuru, for example, has tombs for both pharaohs and queens, built with sandstone. Nuri is famous for its many rulers' pyramids, highlighting how important these structures were in Nubian culture. The Kingdom of Kush, where you find these places, was a major power along the Nile. Its history goes from Kerma to Meroe, showing us how Nubian architecture and burial customs changed, especially when Egypt influenced them during the 25th dynasty's rule. This was when a lot of pyramids were built, a practice that hadn't been common since Egypt's Middle Kingdom. Despite changes, the Kushite civilization's legacy lives on in more than 255 pyramids in Nubia, showing how royals and other important people were buried. When the capital moved from Napata to Meroe, it wasn't just a change in location. This move changed the whole social, political, and cultural scene of the Kingdom of Kush. Meroe became a center for culture and industry, known especially for its ironworks and the creation of the Meroitic script. This script was a big deal because it let the Kushites write down their own language, helping them keep their culture strong. This script was inspired by Egyptian hieroglyphs, but was truly unique. Meroe was also famous for its iron smelting, making the city very wealthy. Its position on the Nile helped with trade and farming. Meroe was known for its beautiful statues and a big temple dedicated to the god Amun. This all shows how culturally rich and successful the city was. A leader named Ergamenes, or Archimedes I, made big changes in Meroe, moving away from Egyptian traditions. He took on the priests, changing religious practices and making Nubian gods more important. This time also saw women, called Candaces, sharing power with kings, showing how women were respected in Meroitic society. Today, the ruins of Meroe tell the story of this once great city, with its many pyramids and buildings. Even though Meroe eventually fell, its story is a crucial part of ancient Africa's history, showing how advanced and powerful it was. Next, we meet the Garamantes, who cleverly made the desert a lively home full of smart ideas and rich culture. The remarkable resilience of the Garamantes survivors. Exploring deep into the Sahara, we find the Garamantes in Libya's Fezzan area, who tell a story of incredible ingenuity and survival. They lived from about 500 BCE to 700 CE, turning the harsh desert into a place buzzing with life, proving they were more than just simple desert people. They built a complex community, with advanced water systems, stable homes, and wide-reaching trade, marking them as significant players in ancient North African history. The elaborate tombs of the Garamantes show us they believed strongly in life after death and had clear social ranks. These big, decorated tombs and the treasures inside them tell us they were deeply into their customs and wanted to show off their culture and importance for years to come. Their main city, Garama, was a lively town, not just a temporary camp. It had sturdy buildings made of stone and mud brick. This city, along with other places where they lived, was filled with skilled workers like blacksmiths, weavers, and farmers. They had a flourishing community because they were brilliant at making things, growing crops, and trading, all thanks to their creative use of underground canals for water. This smart way of getting water let them farm the desert and keep everyone fed and happy. But there's more to their story. The Garamantes were a blend of different people and cultures, showing they mixed with others from across the desert and the sea. They also had slaves, which shows us they were involved in complex social dealings that went beyond their land. Even with their clever adaptations, the Garamantes' civilization eventually weakened around the 7th century AD. Their reliance on water that couldn't be replaced played a big part in this. As water becomes scarcer and the desert grew, their way of life became harder to maintain. Seeing similar building designs and symbols in ancient places far from each other, like pyramids and T-shaped pillars in Cusco, Turkey, and Egypt, makes us think. Maybe these old civilizations had some shared knowledge or just happened to make things the same way. Pyramids, for example, weren't just built in Egypt but all over the world, from Central America to Asia and even in North America. They were used for different reasons, from being graves and places of worship to spots for important ceremonies. The fact that pyramids are found everywhere suggests that many people thought of them as a way to connect the ground we walk on to the sky above, with their tall points reaching up like bridges to where the gods might live. In North America, the first people built big mounds of earth shaped somewhat like pyramids for their religious rituals, showing that they had complex ways of living and believing. Over in Southeast Asia, big temple complexes like Angkor Wat, while not exactly pyramids, share some of the same ideas, serving as places for people to come together and worship according to Hindu or Buddhist traditions. Then, there's the swastika symbol, which lots of ancient cultures in Europe used as a sign of strength before the Nazis took it. And all over the world, from Ireland to India, you can find old art showing spirals and big stones set up by people long ago, which makes you wonder if these cultures were talking to each other or just came up with the same ideas by themselves. These designs, whether they're about growing, the divine, or what happens after we die, show that humans everywhere seem to think about the same big questions, no matter how far apart they live. There's also the mystery of metal clamps found in old buildings far across the world from each other, making us ask if people back then shared their building tricks, or just figured out the same methods independently. And images of figures sticking out their tongue, seen in ancient rock art all over, could mean anything, from showing respect to bragging about strength, depending on where you are. All these similar ways of building and decorating might mean that people across ancient worlds shared what they knew, maybe through trading with each other, or it might just be that human societies tend to come up with similar answers to the same problems. But the way we think about these old things today is colored by our own ideas and biases, which makes it tricky to understand them, just as they were meant to be understood. Protecting places like Tassili N'Ajjer, which is so important it's protected by UNESCO, is tricky, because while we want people to learn about these amazing spots, too many visitors can actually harm them. It's like we're trying to save these places at the same time as we're putting them at risk, with every person who visits possibly wearing away a bit of history. Dive into the Sahara's past, where it was once a lively place, not the dry desert we know now. The Sahara's radical transformation. The Sahara Desert, which we often think of as a big, empty space, actually hides an interesting story under its sands. Scientists have been studying old fossils and using new techniques to figure out that the Sahara was full of life a long time ago, with many different plants and animals living in its lakes and rivers. They discovered a huge ancient lake using special radar from a NASA mission. This lake was formed around 250,000 years ago and was so big that it covered more than 42,000 square miles of the eastern Sahara at its biggest point. Fish fossils found far from the Nile River at places much higher up show us how big this water area was. It seems like a lot of animals and maybe even people lived around this big lake because it was a good place to stay. People have been trying to figure out how the Sahara changed from this green, lively place to the dry desert we see now. One idea is that people and their farm animals had a lot to do with this big change. When people started farming and their animals ate too much of the plants, it might have made the area lose the moisture it needed to stay green. Also, if people used fire to clear land, it could have made things worse and helped turn the green areas into deserts. But Some scientists think that the Sahara turning into a desert was going to happen anyway because of the way the Earth moves and changes. These changes made the rain patterns shift, which would have made it harder for the Sahara to stay green and wet. This shows that the way people lived in the changing environment both played a part in how the Sahara changed. Finding these fossils and old waterways all over the Sahara shows us there was once a lot more water around, making it a much different place than we thought. This idea gets more support from pictures from space and looking at the ground to find where old rivers used to be. One important tool in figuring out this history is looking at different kinds of atoms in the ground layers, which can tell us about the climate back then. For example, certain atoms can show us if there was a lot of evaporation happening, which means it was warmer and drier. Other atoms can give us hints about what kind of plants were there and how much rain was falling. This helps scientists put together a story of what the Sahara's climate was like a long time ago. The Eye of the Sahara, also known as the Richat structure, sparks quite the intrigue with its mysterious circular design, drawing connections to the legendary city of Atlantis. Some folks, particularly those keen on archaeological facts, might just shake their heads at such theories, but it sure does add an element of mystery to the Sahara's exploration. This natural wonder sits in Mauritania, Northwest Africa, and grabs attention with its bullseye shape made up of layers upon layers of rock, creating a captivating pattern. Initially thought to be the result of a meteor crash, it's now clear that the formation came about through the Earth's own geological doings. Spread across the Adra Plateau, this huge structure stretches about 30 miles across, but looks quite flat when you're standing on the ground. Its true beauty pops when seen from above, showcasing a striking pattern that's a result of different rocks eroding at various speeds. Scientists have a few guesses about how the Eye of the Sahara came to be. Some think it might have been uplifted by underground magmatic forces or shaped by the erosion of a rock fold known as an anticline. There's even talk about a rising blob of salt might have pushed everything up into the dome we see today. The rocks in this structure are ancient, dating back to a time before dinosaurs, and offer clues to the environmental conditions way back when. Despite all we've learned, the full story of the Eye of the Sahara's birth and evolution is still a puzzle being pieced together by geologists. This mix of hardy and soft rocks not only forms a stunning visual, but also serves as a classroom for geologists, revealing secrets about the Sahara's past. It reminds us of the desert's varied history, from dramatic climate changes to tales of lost cities. Yet as we dive into these mysteries, we might wonder if we're looking for our own reflections in the Sahara's sands. The enchantment with Atlantis, the study of ancient fossils, and our amazement at formations like the Eye of the Sahara might reflect our own search for meaning and connection in the grand timeline more than they do about the history itself. Let's explore the Eye of the Sahara, a natural wonder with stories that make us think of lost cities. A window into Earth's past. Nestled in the vast, sandy expanse of Mauritania, the Richat structure stands out, earning the nickname the Eye of the Sahara for its unique, circular pattern that captivates both scientists and the curious alike. This massive landmark, visible even from space, spans around 40 kilometers across, adorned with layered, ring-like formations that have ignited countless discussions about how it came to be. Originally, many believed this eye-catching feature was created by a massive object from space hitting the Earth, due to its round shape. However, detailed geological research has unveiled that the Richat structure is in fact a geologic dome that has risen upwards, a process geologists refer to as a domed anticline. Over millennia, the forces of nature such as wind and water have worn away at this dome, gradually revealing the different types of rocks that make up its structure, from sedimentary to igneous, creating a stunning display of concentric circles. At the heart of the Sahara's Eye lie various sedimentary rocks, including layers of sandstone and limestone, each layer telling a story of Earth's ancient geological events. This geological wonder isn't just a result of ancient Earth movements and volcanic activity, but is a key to understanding the Earth's history contradicting the once popular belief that a cosmic impact formed it. Ancient riverbeds surround the structure and hold precious archaeological treasures. Early humans scattered an abundance of stone tools throughout the area. These artifacts, dating back to the Acheulean period, suggest that our ancestors might have lived in this region, using the abundant quartzite to craft tools and weapons. While its striking appearance and the mysteries surrounding it have made the Richat structure a subject of many speculative tales, including stories that connect it to the legendary city of Atlantis as Plato described, the academic community meets these stories with skepticism. Experts argue that the descriptions don't match, and there's no proof of such an ancient civilization having existed there. The Eye of the Sahara is not just a geographical marvel that stands boldly in the Mauritania desert, but a complex natural structure formed through geological processes. Its distinctive circular rings are not evidence of a cataclysmic event from the skies, but the result of the Earth's natural activities, such as erosion, revealing its intricate layers of rock. The structure not only provides a deep dive into the Earth's geological timeline, showing changes in climate and environmental conditions over millions of years, but also hints at human history through the ancient tools found nearby. Scientists have delved into several ideas on how the Eye of the Sahara came to be. At first, people thought it was shaped by the wearing away of a symmetrical structure that rose up, where volcanic actions and magma pushed the sedimentary rocks above into a dome shape. This dome was then worn down in different ways, resulting in the clear concentric circles or rings we see today. Another thought is that the entire structure was formed by a huge blob of molten rock pushing upwards, which was then carved into its current shape by water and wind. The Eye of the Sahara, or the Richat structure, doesn't just stand out for its geological features. It's also fascinating for history and archaeology buffs. There's a theory that early human ancestors once lived in this part of the Sahara, as shown by the stone tools found there. This suggests they might have used the area for hunting or as a temporary home. Its stunning view from outer space has made the Richat structure not just a focus for scientists on Earth, but also a point of fascination for astronauts and satellite imaging, enhancing its mystery and appeal. Situated in Mauritania's vast Sahara, the Richat structure is a marvel that has stirred the imaginations and inquiries of many. Its unique pattern of rings has even led some, like Jimmy Corsetti of the Bright Insight YouTube channel, to wonder if there's a link to the legendary city of Atlantis, as talked about by the ancient thinker Plato. Corsetti thinks this geological feature could be where the lost city once stood, noting how the structure's layout matches Plato's description of Atlantis. However, there's been a mix of doubt and scientific reasoning from critics and researchers about Corsetti's Atlantis connection. Geological studies show the Richat to be a volcanic dome created by the rise and fall of molten rock around 100 million years ago. This activity, along with erosion from wind and water over the ages, has shaped the Richat's distinct look. Supporters of the Atlantis idea, like Corsetti, point out the resemblance between the structure's circular patterns and the alternating circles of water and land Plato described. They also mention salt deposits and signs of water erosion as hints that the area might have been underwater at some point. Nonetheless, skeptics highlight that despite the structure's fascinating circular design, it doesn't directly prove a link to Atlantis. They argue that differences in size, the lack of evidence for a sudden disaster that would sink a civilization overnight, and the absence of archaeological proof of a once thriving city make the theory a stretch. While the idea of Atlantis captivates many, the scientific community largely agrees that the Richat structure's creation is due to natural Earth processes. Movements in the Earth's crust, changes in climate, and the enduring power of erosion have over eons sculpted this unique landmark, showcasing the dynamic nature of our planet. Uncover how stories like Atlantis might blend myth with real science, revealing secrets from the Sahara, a geological puzzle, or the lost city of Atlantis. Plato's story of Atlantis tells us about a perfect society that went through a rise and fall, mixing elements of myth and, interestingly, bits that might align with science. The idea that Plato could be talking about real scientific facts in his story-like explanations has caught the attention and sparked debates, especially among people like Jimmy Corsetti. These folks believe that the careful analysis and sometimes skeptical view of modern archaeology might not fully appreciate the impact of big natural disasters, like the sudden increase in sea levels known as the Meltwater Pulse, 1B. This event is believed to have happened about 11,600 years ago, right when the Younger Dryas period, a time of major climate change, was ending. This period could have caused sea levels to rise quickly because of the ice melting fast. The Younger Dryas is known for its big shifts in climate, affecting places all over the world, from droughts in Anatolia to changes in Africa's Lake Tanganyika and the East Asian monsoon patterns. The start and end of this period are connected to significant changes in the environment that affected both people and nature. Interestingly, this time is also linked to the start of the Neolithic Revolution, which is when farming started and people began living in one place more, partly because the climate was changing. Scientists have looked into these big climate events, especially the meltwater pulses, by studying the dirt and sediment from different places like the Louisiana continental shelf and the seafloor near Antarctica. Their findings show big changes in how much and what kind of sediment was carried to these places, suggesting changes in how water from melting ice moved and how icebergs breaking off affected sea levels around the world. These meltwater pulses, including 1A and 1B, show times when sea levels went up quickly, with 1B happening around the same time Plato said, Atlantis sank beneath the waves. The Eye of the Sahara, or the Richat structure, is a fascinating natural formation that has caught the eye of both scientists and those who love mysteries. It was once thought to be made by something hitting the Earth because of its round shape, but more research showed it was formed by natural processes. These processes include the rising and then wearing away of a dome-shaped area caused by magma pushing up from below. This has resulted in the unique pattern of rings we see, made by the wearing away of different kinds of rocks over time. Even though experts agree it was formed naturally, the Eye of the Sahara has made some people wonder if it might be the Atlantis Plato talked about. This is because it looks like the descriptions Plato gave, with its rings of land and water. People like Jimmy Corsetti think it matches the size Plato mentioned for Atlantis and is surrounded by features similar to those in the ancient stories. But there are big hurdles for this theory. The Eye of the Sahara is in the middle of the Sahara Desert, far from the Atlantic Ocean where Plato said Atlantis was. This difference in location makes it hard to see how the Richat structure could be the Atlantis we've heard about. Plus, there's no scientific proof that the area was ever underwater, as the story of Atlantis suggests it would have been. The Richat structure sits in the Sahara Desert, a place that has seen vast changes in climate, shifting from a green, water-rich area with rivers and possibly lakes to the dry, sandy environment we're familiar with today. There are signs, like the discovery of elephant teeth close to the Richat and ancient paintings on rocks showing a much greener scene, that suggest this area was once far more welcoming than it is now. However, we still haven't found any clear signs of ancient civilizations, like Atlantis, that might have lived right there in the Richat structure. When we look closer into the area around the Richat structure, what might seem like an empty desert at first glance actually holds clues to human life from long ago. The discovery of old stone tools scattered around tells stories of how people used to hunt, make things, and live in the area. Broken pieces of pottery silently show that these people had their own ways of living, indicating a society that was complex and full of life. Despite the Sahara being seen mostly as a vast and empty desert, it actually hides a deep story of human life, shown through the rock paintings and carvings found throughout the area. These pieces of art give us a peek into what life was like for the people who lived there back when the Sahara was a lush place with lots of greenery. Starting around 12,000 years ago, this rock art shows us the culture and everyday life of the ancient societies in Africa. The art covers several different time periods, each showing how the environment and society changed over thousands of years. For example, the horse period art shows images of men on horses with weapons and chariots, indicating changes in how society was organized and what technologies were used. Then, in the camel period, we start seeing camels in the art, showing how people adapted to a drier environment. These ancient artworks are more than just historical records. They tell the story of how the Sahara's climate dramatically changed. The art shows animals like giraffes and cattle, which points to what was important to the people living there at the time. The Sahara went from being a place with lots of water and greenery to the desert we know today, but these artworks have kept the story of that change alive. Concealing is a key place for understanding this history. Recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it was found in 1933 and has over 15,000 drawings and engravings that tell us about human life, climate change, and how animals moved around the Sahara from 6000 BCE. This place is not just important for its art, but also for its geological features and beauty. But even with these fascinating insights into the past, connecting the Richat structure to Atlantis is still a big leap for many people. The lack of direct archaeological proof linking the Richat to the story of Atlantis leaves us in a place where we're caught between wanting to believe in a great story and needing solid evidence to support it. This story, where natural forces wear away both the landscape and some of our hopes, shows how much we love mysteries and are always looking to understand where we come from, no matter how unlikely the story might seem. Could the Richat structure truly be the Atlantis Plato spoke of? Or are we letting our imaginations run wild? If you found this journey through myths and science intriguing, don't forget to like and subscribe for more explorations into history's mysteries.